Okay, yeah, but we need a cold open.
Yes, we do need a cold open. Well,
MLK Day.
Yeah, it is MLK Day, but the thing is, like, what is there that's that interesting about MLK Day? I mean, basically, MLK, when you think about it, is really boring, because everyone just agrees he was good, even people who completely disagree with all of the fundamental principles MLK stood for.
Yeah, but that's the best thing about it. Like, for example, Mike Pence saying
Donald Trump
building a wall is something that MLK would agree with.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's great to watch like right wingers try to co-opt MLK's message.
It's a bit like when I'm going to do the classic referencing the film we're about to review in the cold open. It's a bit like when Nick Griffin said that Churchill would be a supporter of the BNP.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, he said it. I remember when Nick Griffin was on Question Time. I was actually looking into Nick Griffin recently, mostly because, you know, there's this thing called fascism that still exists in the modern day. Mm-hmm. Basically, there was a time when Nick Griffin said, he was at a KKK rally, and he said, there's a difference between selling your ideas and selling out your ideas. We're about selling our ideas, but we're not about selling out our ideas. So we're not just going to say, yes, all of them must go. If we say that, no one will listen. But we talk about tolerance, freedom, independence. These are ideas nobody can disagree with. And then later on in the Question Time thing, he was like, we just want to get rid of the... No, that was wrong. I had his voice. I thought I had his voice pretty good when I was doing it then, but now I'm not going to be able to get it back again. So I was saying, we just want to get rid of all the people who are bogus asylum seekers, and everyone else can stay. And it's like, I know your game, Nicky. You don't really think everyone else can stay, do you, Nicky?
I forgot about Nick Griffin.
Yeah, classic.
I forgot about him. That's a nice throwback.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. But now racism is over, so Nick Griffin isn't around anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Back up, chump, you know Biggie Smalls rips it quick and kicks it quick. You know how black niggas get with the hood fatigues, with the boots with trees. Flipping trees, making crazy cheese. Hitting buckshots at niggas that open spots on the avenue. Take my loot and I'm bagging. Pippin' hoes that drive Volvos and rodeos. Flash the roll, make a wet in they pantyhose. Damn, a nigga style is unorthodox, grip the clock. When I walk down the crowded block, just in case a nigga wanna act out, I just black out, blow the motherfucking back out. That's a real nigga for you.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast. We look at films that come out relatively recently in cinema and see if they still hold up upon a second watch. This week, I am your host, Michael, and this week I am joined by my co-host, Luke, and this week we are talking about the film Darkest Hour. I was about to say Zero Dark 30. What is that?
Zero Dark 30. I think that's about the killing of Osama bin Laden.
Oh, yeah, that is it. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're looking at The Darkest Hour because we're looking, of course, we're in our Oscar season. In the run-up to the Oscars, what we like to do, what we've done, it's our tradition, is we look at the films that won in various categories in the Oscars of the previous year. And, of course, this film won Best Actor for the performance by Gary Oldman. So why don't you tell us a thing or two about Gary Oldman?
About Gary Oldman?
And this film.
Okay. So Darkest Hour is a 2017 war drama film directed by Joe Wright and produced by Anthony McCartan. All stars, as you said, Gary Oldman, also Kristen Scott Thomas, Lily James, Stephen Gunn, Ronald Pickup, and Ben Mendelsohn. It was released on the 22nd of November 2017 in the United States and the 12th of January 2018 in the United Kingdom. And Michael, do you want to have a guess at the budget?
Yeah, I mean, kind of hard to say because, I mean, it didn't look that expensive.
That seems to cost something.
I think I'm going to go for what seems like reasonable for me, which is just over 10 million, so like 14 million.
30 million, Michael.
30 million.
30, yes.
Just never can tell.
The box office.
I didn't really know much about this film, like, at all. I really wasn't thinking about this film in my head when it came out. I wasn't thinking about it over the last year. The only time I thought about it was when you said, hey, Michael, let's review The Darkest Hour, at which point I immediately forgot about it until about a week ago when I decided to watch this film. So with all that said, I feel like this film probably didn't do, like, massively well. I think I really want to go for, like, just under 100 million, but that seems a bit ridiculous, so maybe I'll go just over. Let's go for 120 million.
Yeah, no, it's not the worst guess ever, Michael. 150 million.
Oh, good thing I went just over. Saved myself. Yeah, if I'd have gone just under, I could have been almost half, because I would have gone to 80 million.
So it made back 5 times its budget, so reasonably successful.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you mentioned, Michael, we're reviewing this movie because of Oscar season. Just to let you know.
You are recording, by the way, Luke. I just want to double check.
Yeah, I am. Okay. Don't worry. I thought that would be embarrassing. So it won 2 awards at the 90th Academy Awards, which was Best Actor, which won by Gary Oldman. for his portrayal of Winston Churchill, and also Best Makeup and Hairstyling.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah. I know. It was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Production Design, Best Cinematography, and Best Costume Design, and didn't win any of those awards.
Pathetic.
Isn't it a great coincidence that there was also a movie called Dunkirk, which was about the actual Battle of Dunkirk, nominated at the exact same Oscars?
It frustrates me to no end that these films were not tied into each other, because it would work so well.
I know. I think it must have been like an honest trailer from like Screen Junkies I watched, and they were like, you know what, if you mesh these two movies together, you'd have a really good movie.
Yeah, you know what, actually, I was thinking, I feel like, here's the thing though, I feel like when we reviewed Dunkirk a while ago, cast your mind back to when we reviewed Dunkirk, I actually said I'd like it if they showed more of like the political turmoil on the home front. I can't 100% vouch that I said that, but I'm pretty sure I said, oh, you know what would make this film a bit more interesting, because if it showed, because, you know, the boats just show up in Dunkirk, and I was like, yeah, if they showed like everything that was happening, but yeah, great.
Yeah. No, yeah, great. It's just a weird coincidence, I guess.
Yes.
It's like when Olympus Has Fallen came out around the same time as that other movie,
Gods of Olympus.
about the White House. No,
White House Down.
White House Down, yeah. Those two movies came out like literally around the same time, both about the same thing. Yeah, just crazy. So basically, the plot, well, it's set in May 1940, stars Gary Oldman and Winston Churchill, and it is an account of his early days as Prime Minister during World War II and the May 1940 war cabinet crisis, while Nazi Germany's Wehrmacht swept across Western Europe and threatened to defeat the United Kingdom. So yeah, there you go. Michael, nitpicks.
Well, actually, you know what, Lee, we haven't said an important question, which is, did you like this film?
Did I like it? Initially, yes, but after research, no. That's how I'll phrase it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like that probably means you did more research than me, because my research did not affect my liking of this film. So, for my part, I thought this film was okay. I think it was better than Dunkirk, but I didn't think that highly of Dunkirk. So that's basically it. You know, I thought this film was okay. Good, probably. I would say good, but not great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So, have you got any nitpicks?
I actually have two.
I've got 0, so
yeah,
you
okay,
just
that's
go.
good. Yeah, to be honest, I mean, the two I've got are very. I mean, one of them's not entirely serious. It's just it annoyed me they didn't have Colin Firth to play the king. Obviously, we've spoken about about how this film could have been tied into Dunkirk. I think so there was this meme. I don't know if meme. I feel like everything's a meme now. You see something on the internet, it's automatically a meme. But it was basically like somebody was saying like, oh, I have a theory, because you know you get these fan theories like all the Quentin Tarantino films happen in the same universe. Someone was like, I have a theory that, you know, like the Hurt Locker. And I can't remember what the film is. Do you remember that film about 9/11 where they're like some people stuck in a stairway?
It might just literally be called 9/11.
Oh yeah, okay, let's go for that. So yeah, it's like, I have a theory that 9/11 and the Hurt Locker occurred in the same universe. And obviously it's a joke because they, you know, like the joke is like in the Hurt Locker people refer to this event called 9/11. Yeah. Why could that? Yeah. But the thing is, they could have established a little cinematic universe, a historical cinematic universe. They would have had Colin Firth be the king. Because here's the thing, okay, I feel like most people, when they see this guy, who I think was from Batman, playing the king, they're like, ugh, who's this guy? But if you had Colin Firth there, every single person, oh, it's the king who stutters. Oh, I know that guy. Like, people would immediately. So I think Colin Firth should just, whenever they need to portray that king, seeing as, you know, I don't even know what was he? It was like a George the Fifth, George the Sixth. It was some kind of George. But whenever they need to, like we don't even know like what his regnal number is. So whenever they portray him, they just like, hey, Colin Firth, and then people will immediately be like, oh, it's Colin Firth.
You know the guy who portrayed him, Paul Mendelsohn? He's not even British, he's Australian.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Unbelievable.
I feel like he is he, okay, so do you remember Batman The Dark Knight Rises?
Yes.
This might be completely off, but is he the guy who's like makes the deal with Bane because he wants to take over Wayne Enterprises?
Yes,
yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. He's also the bad guy in Rogue One and Ready Player One.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he is the bad guy in Rogue One. Yeah, I haven't seen Ready Player One, to be honest. I've heard bad things about it, so I didn't watch it. Anyway, and then for my second one, okay, this one's a bit technical, but it did annoy me. Okay, Churchill, he's talking about Hitler's demands for peace, and he's saying, if Hitler gave the following, you know, conditions, I could be convinced to accept it. And one of the conditions he mentions is, you know, Hitler wanting dominion over Central Europe. So he's basically saying, if all Hitler wants is dominion over Central Europe, that's fine. And then he says, and British independence. And of course, the thing is, like, those two things are included, or the British independence is included within Central Europe. It's not like, oh, if Hitler wants Central Europe and also to take over Britain, you know, basically what I'm saying is if the implication of what he said at first, which is, oh, if the only thing he wants is dominion over Central Europe, I could be, you know, persuaded to agree to that. And then a completely unnecessary addition, and also Britain being independent, which is already very much implied by him saying that the only initial thing he'd accept is Hitler having dominion over Central Europe. And then what's even worse is that at a later point they qualify that by saying that they would seek to ensure the independence of all Allied countries, meaning France, Holland, all of that stuff. So basically, it's completely redundant.
So you're saying they don't know what they're asking for?
Yeah, what I'm saying is they should have just said one. They should have been like, okay, if all Hitler wants to do is fuck up a bit of Poland, that's fine, But they used all of this complicated. They're like, oh well, obviously, got to make sure that Britain's independent. And it always reminds me of Oswald Mosley. There's like this famous interview with Oswald Mosley. Speaking of reasonable fascists, it's a good thing we had the cold intro talking about reasonable fascists. There's this interview of Oswald Mosley that has like loads and loads of people watching it on YouTube. And it's like your classic example of, somebody who's got really horrible views, like Oswald Mosley, gets allowed to do an interview on TV. And of course, he doesn't just say, I hate the Jews, I want to murder them, or blah, 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 blah. He like obviously makes himself sound as reasonable as possible. Yes. And despite the fact that he would obviously be doing that, people take it completely at face value. But basically what he says is he's like, my problem was with the Jews, these specific Jews who wanted us to get involved in Europe. As far as I was concerned, Hitler's quarrels were with the East, not with the West, but the Jews wanted us to get involved. And therefore, my cat is meowing so loud. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is...
That's your cat?
Yeah, can you hear it?
Wow. Yeah, I can hear it.
He's
on drugs.
Well, the thing is, he's got really old recently. Well, not really old recently. He's been getting progressively older throughout his lifetime. But
yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, now he's got older. He's very needy. And you just like you just leave him alone. He just starts he's like a dog now. Like you get a cat because cats are less effort. You're like, oh, cat, it's no effort. You can cuddle it if you want, but if you don't, it'll just be fine. Now our cat's like, next he'll be asking for walks. Anyway,
sounds like you need to put him down, Michael.
I don't know, yeah. I mean, to be honest, you have to wonder if there's something wrong with him, but whatever. Anyway, so now we move into the plot.
Yes. The plot. Oh, so yeah, you've done with your nitpicks.
Oh, my door's not entirely closed. Maybe that would help. I'm going to go stand up.
Yeah, that's probably help. I'm going to get my water bottle as well, so 1 second.
I mean, I can't promise it will make a massive difference, but if anything, it will stop me from making the noise. Maybe everyone else will be able to hear us. All right. The plot. Do you want to explain the plot? I mean, well, we kind of already explained it, but, explain it in a more analytic way. Wait, were you not there?
Hello?
Oh, Luke, I was just talking. I look like such a fool now. I was talking to myself because I assumed, obviously, I got up, took my headphones out, closed the door. I assume that while I had my headphones out, you probably said something like, oh, I'm going to go do something too. But I didn't hear that, so I got back, started talking, and I was, yeah.
No, I just want to get my water bottle.
That's fine. What I was going to say is do you want to give it a little, you give your thoughts on the plot, a little primer?
Yes, okay. You're going to have to maybe edit something then.
Yeah, I think this will have to be edited.
Okay, so the plot. Okay, so I think it's going to be kind of difficult to talk about the plot without talking about the historical accuracy, but I'll try. So, from my point of view, I think the plot, it was very good. Obviously, it's about Churchill coming into power, being the only one who the opposition will accept as leader or as prime minister, the only conservative, because I guess he was because of his service in the war, I guess in World War One. Maybe that's why Labour wanted him, and only him. I'm not sure about that.
I think, anyway. Okay, so I don't know much about Churchill. I think there was a line in the film where somebody said, he was Labour for a while, and they were replying
he was a Liberal.
Oh, that's it, okay. Well, he's got that famous quote, hasn't he? That quote that conservatives like to use, where it's if you're not a Liberal by 20, you have no heart. If you're not a Conservative by 40, you have no brain. Anyway, but, so I guess maybe the fact that he was a Liberal probably could... Liberal Labour, what's the difference? Corbyn triggered.
Yeah, so I guess that was one of the reasons why only Labour wanted him. So then, after that, basically he has clashes with Lord Halifax and the former Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, and it's really interesting to see the contrast in, I guess the contrast in views between Chamberlain, Halifax and Churchill, because the thing is...
And the King did it too.
Oh yeah, and the King,
he's got his own little thing going on.
The thing is, I do appreciate, I don't think Halifax and Chamberlain are portrayed as villains.
Yeah.
Are portrayed, for their point of view. And I think it's a reasonable point. Obviously, we look back on World War II and we think, well, obviously Churchill did the right thing, not surrendering and, sticking up for Britain and, not signing another treaty with Hitler, because it worked out. But at the time, if you can, just imagine Halifax and Chamberlain, we just had a war, literally, 25 years ago? Or even less, I guess, when it ended, where literally millions of people died. And I'm not sure about the total British
casualties.
Dead
I think it was round about 1 million.
Yeah, I know there's
I know more British people died in World War One than in World War Two.
Yeah, I know that as well.
Yeah.
And on one day in 1916, I think the Battle of the Somme, like 60,000 British troops died in one day.
Yeah,
which is just an absolutely unbelievable number.
yeah. That's more than I've killed in my entire life.
You're going to make a really interesting point there. So there you go. Like, just imagine the amount of death that happened just literally a generation ago, and you are trying not to make that happen again. You don't know it's going to go okay. You don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years. It's going to be the right decision from Churchill. And so I'm very glad that the film didn't portray Chamberlain and Halifax as villains. Like, they had a point of view, Churchill had a different point of view, and, Halifax did seem a bit snaky, but like it wasn't like he was like a bad guy. I have a feeling if this was like a Spielberg movie, like they'd be portrayed more villain-like, or be more villainous than they actually were.
Yes. On the subject of them not really being villains, it's kind of like mental when you think like if like Europe was pretty much completely taken over by Hitler, and we were like, oh yeah, we'll keep fighting. Like if that happened during World War One, we'd have been like, nah, we're good. Yeah. In World War One, we'd have been like, no, you know what? It seems like a lot of effort. I think it was probably made easier by the fact that Hitler was much more insane than World War One Germany. Like World War One Germany, you're like, oh, that's a shame. World War One Germany won, but you don't really care too much. I mean, they're not too bad.
No, that's the thing. Well, actually, Germany in the early 20th century
was very progressive.
It was more progressive. It was more democratic than Britain. Like, if Germany had done or had won World War One, like things wouldn't have been that bad for us.
Yeah.
In terms of how we live our lives, like we wouldn't be under like a fascist rule or whatever. Like that was a threat in World War Two. That's the situation. But yeah, would you have anything to say on the plot?
Well, let's see. Okay, so basically, it's your standard political drama about a war, and those are always good. Because basically, here's the thing: it makes you wonder.
Well, not always.
Well, it makes you wonder why are the Star Wars prequels so bad? Because when you think about the Star Wars prequels, it's basically just like this film, isn't it? It's like, there's a war happening, Your Majesty. Oh dear, what should we do? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Like, okay, that's my thing. Okay, like, what if Joe Wright? I think that's the guy who directed this.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
What if he directed the Star Wars prequels? Would they have been really good? Probably. Examples of politics.
They could have been worse.
I mean, what about 300, Luke? 300. That's slow motion action interspersed with wartime politics. I mean, that's a real winner.
That's a wartime drama political film. Is it 300?
Yeah. Well, they're always like, Sparta will not wage war. Or okay, Lord of the Rings. Again, Gondor will not wage war. All good dramas have somebody referring to their kingdom and saying, will not wage war. It's like Game of Thrones. But, okay, more seriously.
Okay.
The actual one I'm thinking of is the film. Have you ever seen the film? I think it's called 13 Days. And it's about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's basically like oh no, something's going to happen. What are all the options going to be? And each character has their own motivations. And then there's Charlie Wilson's War, which is about the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And Charlie Wilson was basically the guy who convinced them to fund the Taliban. What a hero. Played by Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
So, and that's, to be honest, that's a good film because it's like, complex. It's like, it's portrayed really heroically. He's like, we've got to fund the rebels to protect against the Soviet Union. And then the Taliban happened. Anyway.
Yeah. It hasn't aged that well, I guess.
Yes.
When did it come out? What year?
I think, to be honest, it probably I feel like it came out late 90s. So, okay, let me look it up.
So that's literally just before the war on
terror. No, everything I said, okay, this changes everything. Also, this is weird. It's called a comedy drama, but it came out in 2007. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's supposed to be like kind of almost satirical, and because to be honest, I watched it a while ago, and maybe I was too stupid to appreciate the satirical dimension. A drama based on a Texas congressman, Charlie Wilson's covert dealings in Afghanistan, where his efforts to assist rebels in their war with the Soviets have some unforeseen and long-reaching effects. Classic.
So yeah, it doesn't sound like it was a heroic thing that he did.
Yeah.
Based on the description. Yeah. So with the plot, obviously you mentioned like it's just a standard war thing, like two people, or I guess Neville Chamberlain as well, along with Halifax, just competing with Churchill about what the best thing is to do. And throughout the movie, obviously Churchill goes from like, no, we will not sign a peace deal, or we won't sue for peace.
Yeah.
We're going to stand up to Adolf Hitler. And then obviously as things happen with Dunkirk, and how all the men in Calais, the 4,000, eventually can't hold out. And he realizes, okay, maybe the best thing to do is sue for peace. And then he goes on the tube, speaks to the great British public, and that changes his mind. And then he returns to the House of Parliament, gives a rousing speech, gets his party on his side, and then does the same thing in the House of Commons.
Actually,
So,
look, small correction there. Because there was a coalition cabinet at the time, he actually got his cabinet on his side, which was made up of a variety of party affiliates.
I see.
I read up on the real. It was called the May 1941 cabinet crisis, I think was what it was called. This whole event, and basically it said Churchill, quote unquote, outmaneuvered Halifax by calling his own cabinet meeting 3 days before the official cabinet meeting to accept the surrender or something like that. I don't know. That last bit was just me trailing off because I couldn't remember it. But so basically it was a sneaky old. To be honest, I didn't think that was very well communicated in the film. Because like you say, it wasn't. I mean, I was just like, oh, I guess he's just hanging out here. When apparently it was like a real sneaky little move by Churchill. But in the film, it was just like, oh, guess Churchill's doing something.
Yeah. I will say in terms of the plot or the story, there's just one thing I don't like about it, which was the ending. So
you didn't like the fact that Hitler lost.
The ending of the movie, Michael. The ending of the war.
Okay.
So, obviously, Churchill is like, hey, guys, you know what? We shall fight them on the beaches. And
we
all
shall
of that.
fight them on the landing grounds.
Yes, and all of that good patriotic stuff. And obviously, that convinces Parliament and Neville Chamberlain to support him. And obviously, the Labour Party already support him. So it's like, yeah, we're all behind you, Churchill. Yeah. And then it cuts to Halifax. And someone asks Halifax, what just happened? And Halifax says something, I believe, like he weaponized the English language.
Yeah. I think he said mobilized, not
he mobilized the English language. And it's like, I would like it if there was, because then the movie ends, obviously, Churchill, he walks out of the Houses of Parliament, and that's it, it's over.
Yeah.
And you don't, obviously we know what happened afterwards, but if you didn't know what happened after that, maybe Halifax was right.
Yeah.
Maybe he did actually...
So you're saying what you'd like is if they had one of those things they have at the end of True Stories where it tells you what happens to each of the characters.
No,
I love
because...
those.
Yeah, no, we need another... We need something else.
Are you saying what you need is we need it to be interspersed with Dunkirk? That's what you're saying.
Perhaps.
Because then we would have seen them going back, retreating.
Yeah, perhaps. We need something else. We need, another scene in which Churchill is proven right. It was the right decision, because after he makes his speech, Halifax could still be right. If somebody doesn't know what happens after that, then it's oh, maybe he is right. Maybe Churchill is being too gung-ho and is, just speaking romantically about war, and he actually hasn't considered the repercussions of what he's going to do. And so I would appreciate another scene where it's you know what? No, it was Churchill did make the right move, and not just some writing at the end on a black background saying Churchill won the war and the Nazis were defeated. It's okay, can you show me a scene to complete the movie that vindicates Churchill's decision? That would have been appreciated.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, basically, here's the problem with what basically happened, is that Dunkirk obviously happened, and then basically everyone just waited around 4 years. Everyone was like, time for D-Day yet? Nope. Yeah. Still another 3 more years. There you go. That's me dismissing the entirety of the African front. Take that, Italy.
Okay, so yeah, that's...
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree. I mean, obviously it should be pointed out, Luke, that factually speaking, it's contingent upon a pretty big if, which is if somebody didn't know what happened. But I assume what you're kind of saying is within the narrative of the film, it didn't communicate that. And even while most people obviously do know what happened, the feeling of the film does not properly exploit the fact that we know Churchill succeeded.
For me, the ending is if you obviously didn't know what happens, it would be ambiguous. It'd be okay, so what happens next? Did Churchill make the right move? Was Halifax correct? And obviously then it just cuts to some text saying Dunkirk was successful, and and everything that happened in the war it just lists, which is just, I think it's a bit of a cop out.
Yes.
It's okay, you need to finish the narrative, finish the story with another scene or two if you need to. I think that would have been better. But yeah, that's my only issue with the plot. I think overall it was good.
I have a question. I don't know if it's an issue. I just think it was an interesting film this thing did. Interesting thing this film did. What do you think about Mrs. Typist McGee? Typist. So basically, there's I think this was kind of a kind of, it's one of those things where I didn't actually think about it while I was watching the film, but afterwards I was that's kind of a interesting thing for them to do in a way. In it, it doesn't, there's no reason why it needed to be there. But the entire film is kind of framed in a way by this typist character who is basically typing up Churchill's speeches because he can't use a typewriter. That's the word. I was going to say keyboard, and I was thinking it's not a keyboard. It's mostly because I was staring at my keyboard while I was doing it.
Okay. Yeah. So that is interesting. And yeah, like role again. I think you need someone like that, like a regular, ordinary person to contrast with Churchill.
Yeah, you couldn't tell the story from Churchill's perspective because he's such a mythical figure that you need to have him like. It's like, you know, I assume I've never seen the film Downfall, but I'm just going to guess that it's probably told from the perspective of like some random Nazi officer at first, and then you're introduced through Hitler. I'm 100% guaranteeing that the film I've never seen called Downfall doesn't start with just Hitler chilling. You know,
you're gambling a lot here, Michael.
I'll eat my hat if the film Downfall starts with Hitler just chilling.
Okay. Well,
can't wait until we review that.
Yeah. So that's it on the plot. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I have like a lot of things to say, kind of like about the plot specifically relating to Churchill, but I can say all of that stuff when we do the characters, I think, and that would be better. So what I'm really interested in, Luke, is your research, because apparently, I mean, for my research was just an interesting little tidbit, but it seems like your research was groundbreaking.
Okay, you go first with your tidbit.
Okay, well, basically, my thing is that for me, the top Google search, if you type in the words "did Churchill," is did Churchill really go on the underground? And that was the main thing. That was the one thing in the film I was watching. I was like, that seems like it was made up. So I typed in did Churchill, so did Churchill really go on the underground? Clicks it, and apparently, at least, so this was my one experience checking the veracity of this film and the accuracy of this film. Basically, what the article said is that no, that event didn't happen. However, Churchill did have a habit of wandering off into the public and basically going AWOL, and then appearing later on being like, oh, we just had a lovely time. So he would often go for little strolls out in the public without any of his official people around. So basically that was just inserted in there as, something that he did do, but obviously he didn't do that specific thing. And that's an example of, I think fine, because it's, using a narrative device to make the story more compelling, and it's not completely inaccurate to what Churchill was actually like. Anyway, now you tell me all of your info.
Okay, so I do have a problem with that.
Is it that you hate it? Is it that there was a black person there?
Yeah, well, okay, I guess that's another whole thing about how Churchill felt about black people.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. So there are minor issues with historical accuracy that I have. So, for example, the film gives the impression that the king was able to listen to the "We'll fight them on the beaches" speech live in Parliament. This was impossible because radio broadcasts from Parliament did not start until the 1970s. Whilst Churchill did record the speech for Mr. Rising.
And that was something you noticed when you were just sat there watching it in the cinema, wasn't it, Luke? Because we all know you're an expert on radio broadcast history, don't we?
Are you saying that my issues with historical accuracy aren't legitimate?
No, I'm just saying it's like funny because I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that that was something that you probably had to find out by looking it up.
No, yes, I did have to find out.
Not that makes it illegitimate, just I just like the idea. I just like the idea of like you who, no offense, Luke, but I don't associate you with a massive in-depth knowledge of parliamentary history, but I like the idea if you just sat there. I mean, obviously you probably didn't see this in the cinema, just going to guess.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, but I like the idea if you sat there going, that's parliamentary broadcast didn't start until 1974. Did you say? Yeah.
And Churchill didn't make the recording available until 1949. The point I was making with that and a couple of other things, so where are we? The V for Victory sign wasn't until a year later, that's when he did it.
What?
The war cabinet meetings weren't inside a bunker because the
I thought that
hadn't
was weird.
started yet. Yeah. So that was completely made up. Obviously, why would you have meetings in a bunker if you're not getting blitzed?
Yeah. I tell you what, those lads, Churchill was getting blitzed every day because he drank loads, because he had a problem with chronic alcoholism.
Yeah, no, that was accurate. So yeah, there are things like that which for me I don't care about. Like, I don't care about those things because it's like it doesn't affect the story, and they're just little things that, although they're incorrect, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But there are some things in this movie which actually are incorrect.
In a big way.
In a big way.
Did you say they're bigly incorrect?
They are bigly incorrect. That affect the plot. So basically, in Darkest Hour, the British decision to fight Hitler as a choice rather than inevitable is kind of inaccurate. So the situation in 1940 was dire, but basically Churchill wasn't really... He wasn't... Halifax disagreed with him, but he had plenty of support in the war cabinet. And basically, he really didn't at all consider negotiating peace with Hitler.
Oh,
and that's the thing. Like, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Like, when he's like, you know what, guys, maybe you're right. Maybe we should negotiate peace with Hitler. But that never happened. Like, he never once was like, you know what, we should consider negotiating peace. That wasn't the case. So obviously, the journey of this movie is from Churchill, like, coming to a low point where he's like, damn it, maybe we should get the guy from Italy, whatever he was, the ambassador.
Il Duce.
the Italian ambassador as an intermediary to negotiate with Germany. Maybe we should get that guy because things are bad. But then it's like, you know what? No, we're gonna fight him on the beaches, blah blah blah, and then that's then his journey arrives at the eventual end. But there wasn't like that journey. He was always going to fight the Germans. He never was
going
considering
to make peace,
negotiating peace, and that's like a pretty big thing if you think about it. Like, imagine if that was the case in history, that we were potentially could have agreed a pact with Germany. Like, that changes literally the whole of British history if that happens, and the whole of European history, I'd imagine, as well. So that's the thing that they just completely made up, which again, it's
a big deal.
And undercuts the Churchill's journey. And then there's the thing on the tube. And so the idea is obviously that Churchill is brought back to appreciating, well, maybe not appreciating, but he gets back, he gets his mojo back, basically.
Yeah, like Austin Powers.
Yeah, he gets his patriotic mojo back. But obviously, as you said, that didn't happen. He didn't actually go on the underground.
Underground.
Yeah, he didn't. Like, obviously, the thing is, this movie puts Churchill in a position where he is feeling low and he is thinking about negotiating peace with Hitler. But he's never in that situation in real life anyway, so he doesn't need to go in the London Underground and get a pep talk from all the British people. And he doesn't need to ask the passengers their options. And the civilians unanimously want to continue the fight, and I don't know if they actually would. Like, there's no evidence really.
Well, as we know from Francis Fukuyama's democratic peace thesis, the more democratic a country is, the less likely it is to declare war, because the common person isn't really, the only way that a war can really happen is if the people who aren't going to be fighting that war are able to make all the decisions. If people are actually fighting that war, I mean, you've got to bear in mind, like, let's think about this, like, what do English people hate? French people.
Yes.
So they should have been like, I also like the fact that if Nigel Farage was there, he'd be like, "Oh, fuck Europe."
Yeah. So
and Churchill would be like, "Excuse me, sir."
Well, you're kind of right, actually, Michael. So, like I said, the ride on the London Underground was fictional, and there is historical evidence that most British people were not immediately inspired by Churchill's speeches. That's another thing. And George Orwell actually believed that ordinary people already felt subjugated and might not object to a new order. So
you're saying it's basically like the classic Brexit deal, where it's like, "Oh, I'm angry because the government's not listening to me, so I'm going to support Hitler."
Yeah,
this is why Hitler won. That's what people in an alternative future where someone's like, critical theory, feminism, and so like, this is why Hitler won. You guys.
Yeah. God. So yeah, basically the point I'm trying to make is the London Underground was fictional. Churchill didn't need that pick me up, and also the people on that London Underground train, even if he did go on that, probably wouldn't have been so ready for war as he was.
Yeah.
Or as they were depicted. I guess they would, everyone was like, yeah, let's fight them. Even that little kid. It's like, yeah, let's fight them. Let's fucking kill them. Yeah. But I don't think that the British people, especially after World War One, were probably that keen on another World War.
Yes.
Yes. Also,
but don't worry, Luke, it will be over by Christmas.
That's exactly. Line. Yeah, they remember all that. Also, this is another point. I mean, Neville Chamberlain, he's not the most popular figure in British history. And, I don't think this movie will do any damage to his reputation, because it's already pretty damaged. But there is no evidence that Chamberlain was planning an imminent vote of no confidence and was plotting to overthrow Churchill either. So that kind of...
Yeah.
It kind of makes Chamberlain look even worse.
Kind of slanderous, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing, it's slanderous, but obviously Chamberlain's place in history is one of the coward. Like, that's what he's known as.
I think they should have made a film, like, it would be exactly like this, except it would be all about Chamberlain's efforts to appease Hitler. So it would be like you've got Churchill, and he's like, let's not give Hitler Czechoslovakia. And Neville Chamberlain's like, I'm telling you, if we give Hitler Czechoslovakia, he'll stop this war right now. And it's played really heroically. It'll be like, let's not let Hitler annex Austria. And it's like, if we let Hitler annex Austria, then that will be the last thing he does. Let's not let Hitler remilitarize the Rhineland. And I think that would be great. It would be a classic anti-hero, Neville Chamberlain.
Good point. Another couple of things. It is a fact that Churchill was an object of suspicion for his fellow Tories, but the Labour Party said they would serve the national government under another leader than Chamberlain. They didn't specifically want Churchill, which again, like that right there, I don't really care about, but again, it's just a little bit of historical inaccuracy. Basically, one of the key things that this movie misses, and I think in British history, British historians, they don't miss it, but people looking back on the Second World War and standard British people miss, is the role of the Labour Party. It was the steadfast anti-Nazism of Clement Attlee and his Labour colleagues that basically kept Britain from ever considering negotiating a peace treaty. So, basically, Adrian Smith, eminent professor of modern history at the University of Southampton, said the film yet again is overlooking Labour's key role as the most dangerous moment in this country's history. In May 1940, its leaders gave Churchill the unequivocal support he needed when refusing to surrender. Ignoring Attlee's vital role is just one more failing in a deeply flawed film. So, obviously, he's a super good fan of that. But yeah, that's the thing. I think, like, Churchill, in this movie, he makes a comment about Clement Attlee and says, like, he's a sheep in sheep's clothing, I think. Just implies he's not very strong. But according to Adrian Smith, a professor of modern history, Labour really did deserve some credit for that. And they backed Churchill. And I think, obviously, I learned about this here, and I didn't really know about that.
No, I didn't. This might be almost a good segue to talking about Winston Churchill, the character, but I don't know if you've got any more.
So that's basically all the historical inaccuracies that I went through. And I think we can say from that this film isn't very historically accurate.
Yeah,
and there are some things
problematic.
There are some things which I don't care about, like the Parliament broadcast thing, or Neville Chamberlain trying to usurp Winston Churchill, or the Labour Party not really caring who was the next leader of the Conservatives, as long as it wasn't Chamberlain. The V for Victory thing, that didn't happen until a year later. The bunkers, which they weren't in because there was no blitz. All of that stuff I don't really care about. It's inaccurate or it's fine, but the things that actually do affect the plot in a major way, the fact that there was no consideration for surrender and negotiating for peace, that wasn't even considered by Churchill, and the fact that he did not go on that tube, he did not get that pick-me-up from the British public, who, even if he did go on that tube, they probably wouldn't have wanted a war anyway. So those two things are the reason why this movie, for me, after reading about it, I did think that its historical inaccuracy was an issue. And here's the thing, like, obviously, we know about Churchill, we know about World War II, in the UK especially. We know all this type of stuff. Like, I think if you made a movie about, like, say, the Russian Revolution in 1917 or the French Revolution, like, I personally don't know as much about that, obviously, because I'm British and not French or Russian. I'd be like, okay, you get a few things wrong. I just want to know the general gist of what happened and watch a compelling story. But if you're making stuff up about a historical event that I have knowledge of already, then for me personally, it does kind of ruin the movie. And I'm kind of interested. What you're saying is
you don't care about French or Russian history because only British history matters. And I agree with you, Luke.
Essentially, yeah.
Now let's move on to the myth, the man, the legend. So
Churchill.
Here's the thing, okay. I've been thinking about this for a while, and Mr. Churchill, the man. Basically, what I was thinking during this was it could have been interesting in a way. If they would have portrayed Churchill, and I don't know how accurate this would be, but I think it might have been somewhat accurate. If they would have portrayed Churchill as kind of like unsympathetically obstinate in his positions, because let's break down two facts about Winston Churchill. First one is he was the mastermind of a lot of failed military things. For example, one of the ones mentioned in his film is Gallipoli. So he was pretty much viewed as like an idiot because of Gallipoli. The other thing is like he's a very overrated prime minister because you mentioned Clement Attlee. Now Clement Attlee had the great honour of beating Winston Churchill in the post-World War II election. And I think that looks pretty bad for Churchill. In fact, he couldn't even win the post-World War II election. And the reason why is because Clement Attlee he was just on the ball with his...
Well, it goes to Orwell's point. People were subjugated. They wanted a new order.
Yeah, a new world order. Or, as it would have been without Hitler, a Jew world order.
Wow, what a great pun.
Yes, anyway. And then that's kind of both things. Oh, yeah, and then obviously we have Churchill's lesser-known second term from
1951 to 54, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right in my head. I know that Queen Elizabeth was elected in 52. Sorry, not elected. Coronated in 52, and that was
if only she was elected.
Yes, yeah, if only. And that was under the premiership of Churchill. And yeah, basically nothing happened during that. He was just like, yeah, whatever. So basically what I'm saying is Churchill, more like worst chill.
Wow, fantastic. I forgot to mention, actually, Michael, historical inaccuracy. There was another inaccurate bit, which is Churchill didn't actually come up with the idea to use civilian boats at Dunkirk.
Yeah, that seems like makes sense. I would assume that, to be honest, like prime ministers and stuff make relatively few such military decisions.
Again, that's another thing that I don't really care about because it doesn't really impact the movie that he came up with the idea. But yeah, again, it's just another inaccurate part. But yeah, so there's maybe, I think, in terms of just talking about Churchill, it kind of focused on the popular perception of Winston Churchill. And like, the thing is, he wasn't a man of the people.
Yeah.
He did drink a lot, he did smoke a lot. But yeah, he wasn't as popular and at the time.
Yes.
With the British public.
I think it would have been interesting if they would have kind of made Churchill like a bad guy with like a righteous cause in a way. So like he's an arsehole to everyone, and he's not actually that great at anything.
With a heart of gold.
Yeah, well, not necessarily with a heart of gold, but just like the fact that he happens to be on the right side. And that leads me on to my final point, Luke, which is, and this might seem, I think you kind of implied, I can't remember when you did it, but you kind of implied there was an element of what's called a presentism to this film, which is basically just means applying, present dynamics to the past in a way they wouldn't have really applied.
In regards to what?
And that is, well, I don't know why I heard you say it, but I think they did it with regards to kind of Winston Churchill's attitude towards Hitler. Because basically it was kind of like the way the film presented it to me, it was like every other person didn't know like how bad Hitler was. All the other main characters. And Winston Churchill, he was like a modern day person. So Winston Churchill was like, oh, Hitler, he's the most terrible, horrible person in history. And I was thinking to myself, but why does Winston Churchill hate Hitler so much? Because, I mean, yes, obviously Hitler was fighting an aggressive, expansive war, but, at the same time, is that why he hates him? Because he's fighting an aggressive, expansive war? Or does he hate Hitler because he hates fascism? Or does he hate Hitler because he hates dictators? And if he hates dictators, does he hate Franco? Does he hate Mussolini? Does he hate Stalin? I don't know. Basically, I was thinking, like, what is it? Because here's the thing, okay, I would have liked it. And again, I don't really know how historically accurate this would be. It kind of feels like it would be historically accurate if Churchill was basically just like a kind of, I guess, arrogant and kind of violent person who just wanted to, defend Britain no matter what, because he because of pride and things like that. And I would have found that a little more interesting than just somebody who seems to know Hitler's bad because of the power of hindsight, and everyone else is just like, oh, maybe Hitler's not so bad. And then Churchill's like, oh, I think Hitler's very bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, he wouldn't have been a fan of Hitler, but Hitler at the time in 1940 hadn't done anything too horrific. Obviously, they didn't have any knowledge of the Holocaust.
Yeah, actually, the Holocaust hadn't even begun in 1940.
Yeah, so there you go.
It started in 1941.
Obviously, there was persecution of minorities and Jewish people and all that. So they knew he was a bad guy, but like I imagine Churchill, in his many years fighting wars, would have encountered people who were just as horrific as Hitler appeared to be as well. So I don't know if he specifically would have hated Hitler. But yeah, the point I was making before really was like the cabinet was on Churchill's side.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wasn't like I know why Hitler is awful. Yeah, and none of you do. And the reason why I sit in this chair is because you haven't got it yet. Like, it wasn't like that at all. Like, people understood the threat of Hitler. And, like, maybe they didn't hate him, but, they weren't, it wasn't like Churchill was the only one who could see through the trees just what an evil guy Hitler was.
And the thing is, everyone's like, people already jerk off Churchill too much anyway. So basically, the film should have, if you're going to make a film about Churchill, then you can afford to be a little, give him a little more of an edge, make him a little more grey. Morally confused than just having to be like, oh yes, I am considered to be one of the best prime ministers of all time, even though I didn't do that much. And also, I hate Hitler. Anyone that's good compared to Hitler. Yeah.
I do wonder if the Conservative Party picked another person to lead them instead of Churchill, just another random Tory MP, an average Tory MP at the time, would they have done as well as Churchill?
Yeah,
Because I think, like, judging by just history and everything, like, it wasn't a choice to not surrender. That was the only option. And so, like, if there was a quote from one of the people, I think it's his war minister, Churchill's, was like, the only person in the whole world who hates your appointment more than the Neville Chamberlain is Herr Hitler.
Actually, I think it was the king who said that.
Oh, was it the king?
Yeah.
All right, well, there you go. So that's basically the point he was trying to make, is Hitler was like, oh, damn it, they picked Churchill. The one person in the whole Conservative Party who can stand up and defeat me and who won't surrender. Like, I don't think that's the case. Obviously, I'd have to research it more, but I do imagine, like, if you picked an average Tory MP, like, they wouldn't have surrendered, and they would have, just done what Churchill would have done. But maybe not, I don't know.
I hope many years from now, they basically make this film, but instead of Hitler, it's ISIS, and instead of Churchill, it's Donald Trump. And ISIS like, oh man, they had to elect Donald Trump, the one person who can defeat us.
They're just all sat in their bunkers saying, no, Hillary, she's lost Michigan.
No. Yeah. They were just like, I'm with her shirts on.
Yeah.
No, but this film also featured a cameo from Anthony Eden, who's famous for one of the biggest foreign policy blunders of all time, which was the Suez Crisis. Remember the Suez Crisis, Luke?
I do. I learned about it when I did British politics from 1950 onward, or post World War II onwards.
Yeah.
It was one of the most embarrassing moments in British history.
Yeah.
And it was really like it was the moment when I guess we realised
that we're shit.
That we were no longer the world's greatest superpower. That was the moment. That was the realization when things came crashing down. But yeah, so and we had to join the EU. But yeah, so I think in terms of Churchill, like he was portrayed in a positive light. Obviously, like you would expect. Like going into this film, I was like, oh yeah, Churchill's gonna. They're not going to be taking any shots at Churchill, are they? They're not going to be, portraying him as maybe he's not as good as people think kind of character. They were always going to portray him in a positive light. Just one more thing, Michael, before we go on to Gary Oldman and the acting. Do you think this movie was Brexit propaganda?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of like nowadays every film that's like very patriotic feels quite Brexity. Basically Brexit has stolen patriotism, and now anything that's patriotic seems, I don't know. Well, that's just me.
Athawar Hirsch wrote in The Guardian, I would call the film propaganda more generally, and a great example of the kind of myth we like to promote in modern Britain. Churchill has been rebranded as a tube-travelling, minority-adoring genius, in line with a general understanding of him as the greatest Briton of all time. Hirsch also criticised the film for perpetuating the idea that Winston Churchill stood alone at the darkest hour as Nazi fascism encroached, with Britain a small and vulnerable nation isolated in the North Atlantic. In reality, the United Kingdom was at the moment an imperial power, with the collective might of Indian, African, Canadian and Australian manpower, resources and wealth at its disposal. So yeah, that's a good point. I do think part of the reason why Brexit is popular is people just throughout the last few decades have just enjoyed romanticising the 1940s, and this is another film that has done that. It's just another thing to add to the list of why we in Britain have got ourselves in the mess we do, because we do love the 1940s and everything about it, because it was the time when Britain stood up and defeated Hitler, and obviously context is taken out, and we like to believe the romantic version of the story and the myths and all that, and things like Dunkirk, obviously, they help in that cause, and it does mean to some extent stuck in the past. But yeah, that's my thought in general. Yeah.
I agree. I'm just trying to think if we've got anything else. I just wanted to. Okay, so I guess maybe now talk about the other characters.
Yeah. So what do you want to say? I think because
I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk about the actors. No, it's fine. Okay, we'll talk about the characters, and then we'll talk about the performance. So all I wanted to say, to be honest, this is also about an actor. I felt like the typist looked a lot like Daisy Ridley, and I realised it wasn't Daisy Ridley, and I felt stupid, and I realised I was being brunette racist.
Wow, you thought it looked like Daisy Ridley.
Okay, I mean, maybe... Okay, so let's look up Darkest Hour.
I mean, she's called Lily James, by the way.
Yeah.
She was in Baby Driver, that's where I recognised her. And she was also in Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just crazy, I think. But yeah, I think it's honestly just, brunette white woman racist.
Brunette, white, posh woman, attractive. Yeah, basically. Yeah, so,
made the kettle run in 14 parsecs. And now, apart from that, okay, the other thing is Halifax is played by Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
The one true king.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I honestly thought that maybe it's just because I associate... I've forgotten the name of the character. What's the name of the actor? It's like Delane something?
Stephen Dillon, or Delane,
yeah. And he just brings a certain gravitas to, the sincere... He's got a really good, hopeless face. He's got this face that just makes you think, man, yeah, you're right. Britain is screwed.
We're fucked, yeah.
Yeah. He's just, always looking kind of miserable. And that's why he works so well as Stannis. Because he just, every single day, he was just ugh, it's going to be one of those days.
This isn't a Game of Thrones podcast, Michael.
Yeah, to be honest, it's kind of funny, because I don't even like Game of Thrones that much. I just got behind that whole Stannis fandom. I'm the worst kind of person. I'm the person who, imposes themselves on the fandom without really knowing much about it. I'm just yeah, Stannis is my daddy.
Okay.
And everyone's like, hey, you even read the books?
Well, yeah, I mean, if people are like that, then they'll be like that for everyone, because nobody's read the books.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I did the next best thing, which is watch various Game of Thrones themed YouTube channels which explain the history. And now I know pretty much everything.
Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah. And then, I don't know who played Neville Chamberlain. I don't know. To be honest, Neville Chamberlain didn't leave much of an impression. I felt like I cared more about...
Pickup, I think.
I cared more about the King and Mr. Halifax than I did about Neville Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So no one cares about him. And then apart from that, let's talk about the acting. Gary Oldman. A lot of people don't know this, but he is famous for acting. He's famous for doing a lot of very versatile performances. But I mean, to be honest, in fact, actually, I really did want to look at his cinematography. But basically, Like, I feel like sometimes it's overstated. Like, a lot of the time he does look very much like himself, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's like, oh, he looked kind of different in Leon the Professional. But you know why that is, Luke? It's because he was younger then.
That does make sense, yes.
Yeah, basically what happened is he got older. But obviously in this film, he looks very different. He looks nothing like himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, like, he does a great impression of Churchill. Like,
yeah, I was listening to it. I actually, when I was watching this film, realised I had no idea what Winston Churchill sounded like. So I actually had to look up a clip of him speaking. And I was like, oh yeah, this is accurate. Well done.
Yeah, so he gets his voice right, his mannerisms. And that's the thing, like, we compared it, obviously, well, last week we talked about Gary Oldman, and should Timothée Chalamet have won Best Actor instead of Gary Oldman?
Yes.
And they're just two completely different things. Like, it's Gary Oldman's doing an impression, like, of Churchill, like the best impression you can get of a historical person. And so we know what Churchill looked like, we know what he sounded like, and he's trying to get it as accurate as possible. Like, you can actually measure how good it is. But Timothée Chalamet, obviously...
It was an emotional performance.
Yeah, his emotional performance, his character didn't exist.
Yeah.
So he's just trying to convey emotions, and it's like two completely different performances. And I guess I think what Timothée Chalamet did was harder than what Gary Oldman did. So again, I'd say Timothée Chalamet deserved it over Gary Oldman, but because I think an impersonation is easier to do
than
just pure emotional acting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can do an impression of somebody. You know, like you. Hello there, my name's Luke. It's perfect, see? That's exactly what you sound like. You sound like a generic northern person.
That's fantastic.
And like, nobody would give me an Oscar. Yeah, I kind of actually agree with you. I was thinking that too, because obviously it's worth noting that Winston Churchill, quote unquote, Gary Oldman, did emote in this film as Winston Churchill, and he emoted quite strongly. But I always feel like it must just be a bit easier to emote when you're pretending to be someone else. You know, whereas I'm like, literally, you know, he's just like, oh, I'll just be like what Winston Churchill would sound like if I was angry. You know, if you told me to like act like an angry person, I wouldn't really know what to do. If you told me to act like an angry Donald Trump, I'd be like, now see here, I'm angry. So, okay. I can do a good Bernie Sanders. Wait, Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt politician ever.
The millionaire and the billionaire of taking all the money.
It should be a fundamental human right.
What should?
Guns.
Gun. I'm sorry, I mean healthcare.
Rape fantasies.
You know, girls, they actually like it. They don't want to admit it.
You can just grab them by the pussy. I like that. What if they like merge Trump and Bernie together?
Yeah, that would be
like, the fake news media is the most corrupt institution in all of Wall Street.
Yeah, something like that. He would hate the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah,
just despise that. Yeah, so I think back on.
Yeah, I think Chalamet.
Yeah, I think Chalamet did deserve it, but again, like Gary Oldman, it was a really. But
yeah, I definitely think that this should have won costume.
Yes. Yeah.
That can't. I mean, to be honest, I haven't actually looked. Maybe all sorts of people. Maybe I'll look at the costume and it'll be like, you know, Daniel Radcliffe as Nelson Mandela. And I'll be like, oh, wait, okay.
Yeah.
Best
that
makeup.
Would be interesting.
Oh, it's best makeup and hairstyling, and it's Kazuhiro Tsuji, David Malinowski, and Lucy Sibic. And the other ones were the film Victoria and Abdul. Oh, that was the one about like Queen Victoria and that Indian dude.
Yeah, was he Indian?
He's got a turban.
Okay, maybe he is. I don't know. I just saw that. I didn't know what. I thought he was Middle Eastern rather than Indian because Abdul is more Middle Eastern than me.
There's this film called Wonder, and I don't know why. Something about it just looks hilarious because it's just like the poster is just this kid walking along with some kind of space helmet on.
Space helmet?
Yeah, and I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know. Maybe it was like they would have won the Oscar for putting a space helmet on him. But
okay. So yeah. I just want to say one more thing on Gary Oldman. Brian Tallarico, if I got that right, of RogerEbert.com said there's nothing new to the approach. This is Gary Oldman playing Winston Churchill. It feels often like an obligation, a story that someone felt should be told again, and a way to get a great actor his Oscar. So he's talking about like the costumes, the makeup, the lighting, and all that. Like Gary Oldman going through like a massive change in appearance. Like, does that make him more worthy of the Academy Award because he looked nothing like himself?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like, would people be ranting and raving about it if he looked like himself? Probably not. I mean, exactly. I bet he acts just as well in Harry Potter, but
that's Sirius Black.
He acts just as well in what's the other film called? Dark Knight.
Yeah, as Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Gary Oldman is one of the best actors of his generation. So does he deserve an Oscar? Yeah, and I'm sure Chalamet, he's got a lot of years ahead of him. I'm sure he'll win best Best Actor eventually.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he hasn't won it before. I didn't know that he hadn't won it before, to be honest. But
Oh yeah.
you know what, though? It's one of those things. I always remember when there was like this massive thing about Leonardo DiCaprio hasn't won an Oscar. I can't think what it was, but one YouTube channel basically just made like a list. They were talking. I think it was like a kind of film podcast channel, if you can imagine such a thing. And it was talking about like how all the other actors that are really famous that haven't won an Oscar. And it was listing like quite a few. I mean, I can't remember any of them. I know Will Smith's one of them, but that's maybe not much big of a deal because, you know, he's not necessarily a great actor. But, you know, basically it's like everyone was like, wow, it's crazy that Leonardo DiCaprio hasn't won an Oscar. Everyone's going mental about it. I was like, oh yeah, Leo always gets snubbed. He's never won an Oscar. But there are loads of really good actors who haven't won Oscars. So, you know, why does everyone care about Leo so much?
You know, actually, this conversation about Chalamet reminded me, I was actually looking through the Wikipedia page of Call Me By Your Name after we finished the podcast.
And somebody cited our review.
That would be great now.
Oh, we got another subscriber, by the way. We're on the big 1-0.
Oh, we're up to double digits now, yay. Yeah, so I, at the bottom of the Wikipedia page, it was like sequel. And there was talks, I don't know if it's going to happen, of a sequel. And it would involve AIDS.
Wow.
So yeah, we were kind of
That's
right on
really
that.
cool, yeah. Wow.
These kind of movies, if they're good, they have to kind of involve something like that.
Gotta have AIDS. I'm looking forward to what if, okay, when you think about it, okay, does Timothée Chalamet look a bit like a young Tom Hanks?
No.
Yeah, but what if he did?
Well, yeah, maybe CGI he can. Who knows? Okay, so next, yeah, I think we're done actually. Do you have anything to say? Because I'm ready to wrap up.
No, yeah, I'm ready to wrap up. I'll just have a think.
Do you want to
I
go
thought
first?
there was one thing I wanted to say. Oh, what was it? Oh, I don't think I'm going to get it. Nah. It probably wasn't that important. Otherwise, I'd remember it. It was going to be like kind of a semi-relevant thing. You know, when you got one of those things, it's like semi-relevant. I'll tell you what, you wrap up first. And I'll see if I can think of it before the end. But it wasn't that important.
No, sure thing. So, Darkest Hour. So, like I said, I enjoyed the plot. I thought it was a good story, apart from the ending. The ending could have been better. Like I said, just an additional scene that vindicates Churchill's decision. But then you come out of the movie, you go onto Wikipedia or just do some research on the internet, and you find out that a lot of this movie is completely inaccurate. And Codswallop, exactly, Michael. Complete codswallop. Especially, well, not I guess especially, but things that are key to the plot, like Churchill considering a negotiated peace. That is just not true. And that is a major point in the movie. He wasn't going to negotiate with Germany. There wasn't a tube ride which got his spirits back, his mojo back. Like, these are key things that happen in the movie that just don't exist, and aren't true. And for me, it does seem that, like I said, I'm okay with some inaccurate stuff, like, the Viva Victory song wasn't until a year later, like, stuff like that. I don't care about that. They can do that. But things that really affect the plot, that are just untrue, I have a problem with. And this great story, or maybe not great, this very good story, I think is undone by the fact that it's just lying. It's not telling the truth. So that is very unfortunate. Gary Oldman's performance is really good. I still think Chalamet should have won Best Picture, but, you know, you can't say it wasn't a good thing. Sorry, you can't say it wasn't deserved, and obviously his career, you know, he probably did deserve Best Actor at some point. And, yeah, I think this movie, I would have liked to watch it again. I was enjoying it while watching it, but, like, I just can't get past the fact that it is so historically inaccurate. And for someone who is from the UK, I care about that stuff. I do, because it's like the history of my country. Like I said, if it was about the French Revolution and got stuff wrong, I was like, I don't care, it's France, whatever. Like, yeah, that's not how it happened at all, whatever, I can still watch it. But the fact that it's talking about my country, I have to, you know, I'm just more invested in it, I guess. So I have to care about how historically accurate it is. And so I have to only give it then, because of the historical inaccuracies, I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I've been thinking about this, and I think that this film was engaging and enjoyable to watch. Having said that, part of what makes it enjoyable is that you are watching a part of British history. You know, I mean, if you just want to watch a bunch of fantasy people talk about whether or not they're going to war, you can watch this show called Game of Thrones that exists. But, you know, if you want to watch a historical look into Britain's past,
then don't watch this movie.
Yeah, don't watch this movie. And I guess the other thing is, like, you know, Churchill, he's not a very interesting character in this film, and while obviously Gary Oldman did a pretty good job acting, don't know why I said voting. I would also probably say that Chalamet should have won, like I think I already said, but you know, he did a good job acting. But the problem is he's playing a character who basically just boils down to somebody who's right objectively right given historical hindsight, and is just very forceful about the fact he's right. But it's not really that interesting to watch because you don't care about, you're not like, oh, this is an interesting character. You're just like, oh, it's Churchill, the hero, boring old hero.
So do you not agree with me that the plot wasn't that interesting?
I think, yeah, okay. I mean, the plot,
because I think it was, because I like the journey he was going on and like the battles he had with Halifax.
Yeah, I think the plot was good. I mean, I would say, yeah, it's one of those films where it's not like action packed, but in terms of like I think the interaction between the characters was good. I think what I would have preferred is a bit more interplay, like intrapersonal reflection, internal reflection on like Churchill. So obviously, he's got these things where he's conflicting with other characters, but there doesn't seem to be that much of an internal conflict within Churchill, apart from the thing that's like made up and also not really that interesting because you know how it's going to end up in the first place. It might have been interesting to give a new spin on Churchill's character and his motivations, but that didn't happen. With all of that said, I think I'm quite comfortable. I've been staring at my little spreadsheet for a while, and I'm really quite comfortable putting this in between Ocean's 13. I think it's better than Ocean's 13. And I don't really need to explain why, but actually I'm going to say tentatively that I'm putting this one below Call Me By Your Name. And that's maybe a weird one because obviously Call Me By Your Name weren't that gung-ho about it. But I think when you break it down, I don't know, Call Me By Your Name had a bit more like artistic going on there. I mean, to be honest, it would either be just below or just above. I might say maybe a bit later upon reflection it should be just below A Nightmare Before Christmas, which it was got there. And to be honest, A Nightmare Before Christmas, when you think about it, isn't Jack Skellington in A Nightmare Before Christmas just like Winston Churchill in The Darkest Hour? And Christmas is Nazi Germany, Halloween Land is Britain.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the line. Yeah.
And he's like, we will fight them in the graveyard. We will fight them in the pumpkin carving area. Now,
it's fantastic. God. Okay,
but what are we reviewing next week, Luke? I'll tell you what we're reviewing. So obviously we're continuing looking at our lovely Oscar thing. I knew as I was saying that, I was like, I think I'm wrong. Okay. Although it's kind of, I mean, I guess this film was, no, actually it was ages ago, wasn't it? Okay, so
2014.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess this film was, nominated for a best, what's it called? Best animated, but yeah. Actually, I think it wasn't even nominated.
Have you said the movie, by the way?
Lego Movie.
Yeah. I think we needed to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I think people should know. So we're going to do a Lego Movie, and we're doing that, I think, because of a Lego Movie that's coming
Lego
out.
Movie 2.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it, because obviously they've had Lego Batman and Lego Ninjago. I wasn't sure if it was just a Lego Movie 2 or... Anyway, yeah, so we're going to do Lego Movie 2. And I'm looking forward to that. I don't know about you, Luke, but I'm looking forward to that.
You know what? Before we do the podcast, I'll ask Dylan about his thoughts, because I remember he really didn't like the Lego Movie 2.
I've seen the Lego Movie, but I'm not going to give away anything about my thoughts. And obviously I will watch it again.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I shall ask Dylan about his thoughts, though, so we can get his analysis.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, that was it then, I guess. Yeah, so we have been selecting and reflecting on The Darkest Hour because of Gary Oldman's Oscar win last year. He won Best Actor for his role as Winston Churchill. And yeah, join us next week when we take a break from our Oscar season to talk about the Lego Movie. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
And I've been Luke. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye. He's called Winston Churchill because he wins a ton.
That makes sense.